Did you guys have a nice Christmas?
I had a fairly decent Christmas, I guess.
How about you, Stu?
I had an excellent Christmas.
Did you guys get any records from Santa Claus?
I got none.
I did.
What'd you get?
I did. Actually, it was from my brother. But it's a Beach Boys. It was 2 albums, actually. One called Sunflower and one called Surf's Up.
Sunflower, is that one of the earlier... No.
These are later ones. Like, it was as they
These are Mike Love records.
No, they're actually both guys, and it was just a weird period in their career where they were like kind of getting more adult, more sophisticated, kind of less of their early stuff. Like that Surf's Up album. My buddy Adam Pettis, who we used to play music with, turned me on to Surf's Up.
Shout out to Adam Pettis.
Yeah, and like the album cover is like it's like a horse in a desert. Right, it's like surfs.
That's
up, like
that's a
surf
little
is
deep
over,
for the Beach Boys,
right? Like, no, it's a really cool record, that one. And so, yeah, it was like reissued as like both albums on. It's called Feel Flows. Just reissuing. So that was like really cool to hear. But those were my records this Christmas. What about you?
I love the Beach Boys. Beach Boys are hard to collect for because they had so many like compilations and reissues and stuff, and I just like getting like the originals. So I actually did get a couple records for Christmas. My mom still buys me Christmas presents. So,
me too.
That's okay.
My mom just gives me the cash anymore. Just go get what you want, boy.
So I actually got her to get some records, and she's just got a smartphone just a few years ago, so she's not real hip on technology, but she loves her some Christmas. So she actually got me 3 records recently. She got me Led Zeppelin 3. So I gave her the easy ones, the ones that you can just pop into just about any record store and find these. And then I got her, she got me AC/DC's Dirty Deeds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a classic. And for some reason, I'm blanking on what the third one was. But she absolutely got me 3.
I think Dirty Deeds may be the only AC/DC record I own. And that's surprising because when I was a kid, I was huge into AC/DC.
I can't remember what it was, but I was listening to a different podcast, and there was some other famous album cover, and it was apparently the guy who did the Dirty Deeds cover did a bunch of just iconic album covers. I mean, it's in case, if you're a fan and you maybe don't remember which one this is, it's like almost like a street view, and there's a bunch of people, and I think their eyes are blacked out, like with bars.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there's a dog, too. It was pretty amazing. So
That dog went on to have a really prolific career. No, I'm full of shit. I'm just kidding.
You had me. You
probably
had me
did.
there.
As soon as you started that, I pictured the Sony dog with the big, like the megaphone thing from the old record player.
Oh yeah, he comes from a long line of well photographed
But
dogs.
isn't that the turntable you use, Steve?
Shh.
So, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So, but what else you guys listen to? What else are you into?
Well, I did buy myself some records for over the Christmas
I
season.
sure hope so. As did I, but I'll go into that later.
Yeah, I went down to the new record store in town,
The Roding
Winds, and I found an original pressing of the Police Zenyatta Mandata, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Is that the
Yeah,
yellow?
that's a good one.
Is that the yellowish cover?
Yeah, it's yellowish and orange.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it had "Don't Stand So Close to Me" and the do song, like and
Da da da.
It's actually do, and then do da.
So that's going to be stuck in all of your heads.
Sting labored over that lyric
I bet he did.
for weeks.
It's that bass player mind.
Yeah.
In between his
simplify it.
in between his tantric sex sections.
Yeah. Yeah, like we're making fun of him, right?
I'm tagging him on this one.
I hope so.
And then my big purchase, I found a copy of this band. They're called it's kind of a solo project actually of Manchester Orchestra's lead frontman Andy Hall. His solo project, Right Away Great Captain, and I was able to find a live version of a performance that he recorded at. I'm trying to think. The Knitting.
The Knitting Factory,
the Knitting
in New York.
Factory, thank you, in Brooklyn. Yeah,
that's
a great place.
That's a
to
baller
record.
name.
Yeah, and so it's an awesome album. And I was so stoked to get that, and I got it for a pretty darn good deal. It was $15 less than anything I found on Discogs, so I was stoked about that.
You're using Discogs?
Well, I look at it to find stuff. I just don't use it to catalog.
I don't remember Stu. I said, Stu, one of these days we're gonna go over and we're gonna catalog all of Steve's records.
Well, I was just reading something, and I was like, "Oh, you can just take a picture of the
barcode.
the UPC, and then it does it." I'm like, "Well, then maybe I'd do it because I can't type that much. I don't got time for that."
It can get pretty hard, like Corey, if you're like into making sure you have the right like pressing plant and everything like that. I'm not quite at that level. Like I'll type the matrix number in off the side of the record, like if it's an old record.
Yep.
But if it brings up like 5 copies, I'll just pick the first one.
Yeah,
that's a little too fussy.
Yeah, I did that with this Police record, and like the I think it was like some letters, some numbers, and then a dash. I want to say it's like A3 or F3, something like that. But I found every other like dash, number and a letter, or letter and a number, but not the one I have. I'm like, well, it obviously exists 'cause I'm holding it. So I don't know, like if it just hasn't, nobody has ever like put that into Discogs, or I don't know how all that works. So I don't know. Maybe I just have some trash runoff, or maybe I have like a uber crazy copy. I only paid $11 for it. Either way, I'm good. It plays great.
I have submitted stuff to Discogs to get it added, like bands that were like private published.
Oh,
it's a pain in the butt.
Oh, I bet.
Oh my god, you can get super detailed with it, but just doing the bare minimum, I'm like clicking on stuff, and I'm like, why is this not going through? Because I'm like, I want this in my collection. All right, Stu, what'd you get?
I too visited our new record store recently for the first time. I hadn't had a chance to get down there.
So if Seth is there, I talk to Seth about this podcast all the time. You can say hi to him and be like, "Hey, I do the podcast."
Okay, how do I identify Seth? Does he?
I'm not going to tell you.
Seth?
I'm not going to describe Seth on this podcast because I know he listens to it, and I'm going to be offensive in some manner.
All you gotta do is walk up to anybody you see there. Are you Seth?
He's almost always.
Are
there.
you Seth?
Yeah.
Are you Seth? Until somebody says, "Yes, I am."
He's the one with the delightful smile and winning personality.
Okay, well, that was everyone there. So, so I picked up 2 records. The first one was best of Jerry Reed.
Ooh, I love it.
And it's an okay. I mean, they didn't lie about the condition. I paid $4 for it, and it's got a ton of surface.
I do
noise.
appreciate they're very honest about
Yeah. So I knew what I was getting. But it still sounds good. Doesn't skip or anything. So it's So sometimes listen to those records that have been played an awful lot, like got a little character to it. Anyway, but
that's like me. I love ringwear. When I get an old record, and as long as it's not split like on the sleeve, it's got a little bit of ringwear. I love it. It's like character.
Do you? Yeah.
That's actually it's funny you bring this up because I was listening to that new Right Away Great Captain vinyl that I'd gotten, and I just bought it from like there was like a Manchester fan group on Facebook, and a guy had posted it on there, and it's you always kind of like is this going to be a scam, or like you're going to get the record or what? But
right.
I kind of looked. He looked like I creeped him and whatever. He looked like a fairly normal dude, family guy, whatever. Like it'd be a pretty big long haul setup to screw me on a $50 record.
I'm going to screw some guy in Wisconsin.
But when I was listening to it, like the first track, there's a little bit more noise than I probably kind of expected. Because it looked like you take it out and it was just in beautiful mint condition. He obviously cleaned it before he packaged it. All this stuff. The cardboard was in great shape, no corner dings, nothing. It was just a great shaped record. But like the first track, like probably 30 seconds in, there was that like pop, 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 and then that kind of went away. I took it off, took the needle off, actually re-cleaned it. It's still there. I was like, huh. And then it was like, I believe it was like the 3rd track on side A, and then it was like the 4th track of side B had a lot of noise in them, but the other tracks were like crystal clear. And I was like, that's
definitely a pressing thing.
So yeah, I'm like, is that just like, was it the last run of pressing? But why would just like one song like that way? It was just, I had never experienced that, and I was like, oh, I wonder how I should bring this up. So if any of you all out there listening have an answer for me, hit us up on either Facebook or Instagram, and I'd love to learn the reasoning behind that. And maybe there's a solution.
I'm sure there's a lot of things that play into it, like those record plants are so swamped, and you're not letting the records cure for 24 hours.
This record's from 2012. It's fine that way.
All right.
I got kind of a funny one too that I bought. The band Coven. I don't know if you know them.
I've heard the name. I can't say I've ever listened to them. Though.
They were famous because they had what was it? They did Tin Soldier, One Tin Soldier Rides Away, and it was in a movie. But they, more interestingly, were the first band that was like a satanic band on a major label on Mercury. And weirdly, there was a guy in the band named Oz or Ozzy Osbourne, not Ozzy, different Oz Osbourne, and they had a song called Black Sabbath.
I'm guessing that. I wonder if that was a fake name though.
No, I think it was actually his real name. It was because it predates Black Sabbath.
My name is
earlier
Oswald
than that.
Osborne.
And actually, like side B is a whole like satanic mass. Like that's just what side B is. But they're like, but they sound like kind of like hippies. Like the music is kind of. Anyway, whatever.
See, I would have thought it would have been like witch rock, and not instead of like that new Viking rock that's real big. But just like witch rock.
I mean, that's
but with
basically
that
what
same
it
energy.
was. Like the lead singer Jinx is totally like
Jinx,
a witch.
of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
That reminds me of like
This reminds me of a Scooby Doo episode right now.
that reminds me of Jack White's current wife was in a band called the Black Bellas or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that definitely sounds like what I would imagine like witch rock music to sound like, which is wonderful.
Anyway,
But anyway.
that record like it's got like kind of a warble. It's like the grooves are wonky on it. Like it kind of. Like I can watch the arm like move back and forth kind of a lot as it goes through. But I mean, it still sounds pretty good. But I was a little
as long as it
bummed,
doesn't track too fast back and forth, it won't bounce or pop.
It doesn't bounce, doesn't pop like it, but it sounds a little wonky.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of records that were warped that bad that when they bounced back and forth, they would literally every now and again they would just jump over to a different groove.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it wasn't a skip that happened every time.
This may be a surprise to all of you at home, but it's bad when your record skips.
Yeah.
So is that everything you got there, Stu?
I actually picked up another record. It's funny because I was going through and there were a lot of contenders because I was like, I'm just going to come home with a brand new record.
Just one.
But it was like was
just
a lot,
one more record.
Yeah, just
one more record.
And there were a lot of contenders, but I try not to like buy too. Like I got a bunch of CDs, and even though I like both, but I try not to double buy too many albums. But I do for some of my favorites. Anyway, there were a bunch of contenders, and then like last second, I saw Todd Rundgren just put out a new album.
Really?
And it was a bunch of collaborations with people. So it was like Adrian Belew.
Sometimes those are really great.
Rivers Cuomo and Rick Nielsen and Steve Vai and like so I was like just like an impulse decision. It had a cool album cover too, and like I brought it home and like it's okay. Like it's like it didn't rock my world, but it's all right.
You made a game time decision, and
I did,
and it was okay.
It was okay. Like, but I probably would have been. I would probably have listened to any of the other choices more than I will listen to this. But yeah, I still like Todd. I'm gonna put it on again a few more times and make a final decision. But.
Yeah, even Aaron Rodgers can have a big run and they only end up with a field goal, so it happens.
All right, so I got a couple other things as of late. I had mentioned previously I got Blink-182, but one of my coolest things that I found when I was actually at the Eroding Winds also was I got a copy of The Sound of Wilson Pickett from 1967 in the original shrink, and they had a note on it saying, I only opened this to check the condition of it, so it was sealed. So I was the first person to play it.
Oh, nice.
And I'll tell you, that record was flat, so I don't know what closet it was in or where it was, but it was in good shape. And it's just something, because they had an Al Green album from like 73 like that, that wasn't being made anymore, and I opened that one, and I was just like, I don't know, this is really gratifying to me.
Totally.
Picked up Heart Magazine. I got a great deal on that. That was like only, I think, like $8 there, and it was in really good shape. That's a classic album.
Yeah.
Every musician in the world that I love is like, oh, Joni Mitchell. And I'm like, I've never listened to a Joni Mitchell album. So I picked up the reissue on clear of Joni Mitchell's Blue, and I can honestly say that that's like a perfect like Sunday morning kind of happy like
Oh, nice.
type of deal. I got
a mimosa and some Mitchell.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I see why they like it.
It's good. You should check out. She did some later stuff.
Sorry,
It's like
sorry, my watch is talking to me.
it's time to listen to Joni Mitchell. Like Blue's a good album. I like some of the stuff she did a little bit later when she was like she did stuff with Jaco Pastorius, the bass player. It's like it's kind of jazz fusiony. I don't know. She got a little weirder than Blue. I don't know. Worth checking out one of these days. Yeah.
I love me some Motown. So I got the Four Tops Reach Out as a reissue. One thing I do want to say, every time I've ever bought in a Motown reissue, it's flat. The cardboard's heavy duty. It's super glossy. Everything looks good. Motown reissues very, very well. On the auctions, I picked up this sampler off of it was from the record label that Sam Cooke had started, called Looking Back, and it's got a bunch of cuts from him and I think like the Soul Stirrers and stuff like that. And the reason I got this, because it was relatively cheap, I'm talking like $22, but this is always said to have sounded amazing, and a bunch of people are buying it on the record group, and I'm like, well, I have some of these songs, but if it's that good, I'll check her out. And then actually got this today. So did you guys ever check out Coal Mine Records, like online?
No.
I'm not.
So Coal Mine Records is a company that presses, but they also, I think, have a relationship with Plaid Room Records. Like, I don't know if they own Plaid Room Records. They do also have like a subscription service, but you can buy their stuff. So I found they had their exclusives on their website, and they had this artist called Kendra Morris. And what got me was the cover. It's very retro 60s. She's like, her hair is long. She's got like long drapey like scarf on and stuff. And everything's in an orange hue. And I'm like, well, that looks great. So I plopped it on my phone and I was listening to it, and I would describe it as definitely soul, but it's got like a mild modern flavor to it. And then they're like, hey, we got it on Teal. We're only pressing 750 copies of this.
Wow.
$20. I'm like, bye. So I got that today, and I listened to the first side of it. It's beautiful. Coal Mine Records always comes super flat, and just I've never had a problem with them.
Good to know.
So anyway, longest cold intro in the history of cold.
That was just the
just
intro.
the intro.
I thought we were
just
just
intro.
running with it.
It's like one of those modern movies where like you get 20 minutes in and then they start rolling the credits. And you're like, I thought we were already just watching.
Wait, like, is it over already?
All right, guys, let's do this. What's up, everybody? As you may have figured out by our super duper long intro, this is your podcast that talks about stuff your dad likes. The Just One More Record podcast. I, of course, am James Dorn, and I got my guy,
Steve Main.
and the man behind the computer that makes us sound oh so smooth.
Stu McLean.
Yeah, and we're coming to you from the Moonhop Studios. So glad to be with you. We hope you had a beautiful holiday. Hope your family's well and healthy. We got some news. We got some stories. We got some loose ends. So remember, there's sometimes our old man brains kick in and then we can't remember things. Right? That never happens, right, Steve?
Never.
Never.
What were we talking about?
Where am I? So one of the loose ends I wanted to talk about was we didn't know if there was an official pressing from the last episode of the Rolling Thunder review. Now, there may be more, but I was able to find one. There was an album. It was the Rolling Thunder Review, which was active from 1975 to 1976. Still has a great Netflix documentary about it. There's at least one pressing. It is called the Bootleg Series Volume 5 Live 1974 5 3 LP set. It was originally released in 2010, and then it got repressed in 2019. This is not a bootleg. It's part of Bob Dylan's bootleg series. So there's at least one official issued album of this performance that Steve talked about.
Yeah, and I from the research I did on it, it sounds like they're in '76. They had pressed. I think it was a 3-album pressing of it, and it may even be the same tracks.
I don't know. It could be the same show. Could not be. So, I mean, he played with a bunch of people. I at least read up on it a little bit. I didn't check the documentary out.
Yeah, and the documentary, by the way, for any of you film buffs, it's actually a Scorsese. He's the one that did the Rolling Thunder review.
Well, I did watch the trailer, and they did have this like epic, almost urgency and excitement about it. Like when they were talking, they're like, Bob Dylan's gonna do this crazy thing, and it was cool.
Didn't Scorsese also did The Last Waltz, I think, which was
that's true.
Which was
He did,
the band, and
yeah.
That's my old man brain being like, I think I know something.
This dot connects with this dot.
Yeah.
Then we talked about that Will Ferrell movie that featured the Eurovision Song Contest. Now, for the life of us, none of us could remember the name.
What's this movie? It's all about Eurovision.
And it's got a complicated name. It's called the Eurovision Song Contest, A Story of Fire Saga. How we didn't know that name, I don't. Old guys, absolutely. Then the last thing, Steve had talked about us losing Terry Hall, a member of the Specials, and they had kind of a convoluted naming structure. So I looked up the order in which their names were, and they were originally called the Automatics, then they became the Coventry Automatics, then the Coventry Specials, and then the AKA Special, and then the Specials.
They got there eventually.
They got there, and that's what it's important.
Yeah. Well, and then like Stu was talking a little bit before we started the show. They had a
like a collaboration.
Collaboration. Thank you, old man brain again. Goodness, it's hitting me hard tonight. Collaboration with
English Beat.
English
right?
Beat,
wasn't it? Yeah, Special Beat.
Special Beat, and there was. I would guess there was probably at least 3 or 4 other collabs where they just like would change their name for that collaboration. So I don't know if that was kind of their shtick, or if it was just just to like be like, yep, this is this project. Let's name this project.
Well, the Dead do that still, like
right, yeah,
like crazy. I like one of my coworkers is really into the Dead, and I'm like, I would drive me nuts trying to keep this straight.
Yeah.
And if I bought their albums, it would be 100% purely chronological of release.
The Grateful Dead.
It would make me insane.
I got a loose end. I misquoted a lyric. Actually, I quoted the lyric right. I attributed it to the wrong song. I with this when we were talking about the Specials. But I realized when I was listening back, I said I was quoting Nightclub, but it was actually Do the Dog.
Oh,
so for any listeners out there who are like, that guy's an idiot. I know I am.
Shame on you, Stuart.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Maybe next week he doesn't get a mic.
That'll learn me.
He'll see. Let's see whose sounds good. I love you, Stu. I think you do a great job.
Thanks, James. You're my favorite.
Well, we all know that. All right, let's hit the news up. So, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene released a clip on Twitter this week using the song Still Dre by Dr. Dre. And in the video, she calls out a reference to making a call to DT, which is presumably Donald Trump. 1999 was when this song was originally released, and it does feature Snoop Dogg in the backing track. Dre told TMZ, "I don't license my music to politicians, especially someone as divisive and hateful as this one." The video has since been removed.
Good on him.
Yeah. I'm like, I wouldn't mess with Dre. That guy's been in the game long enough. Like, he will bury you in lawyers.
Yeah, that dude, I would not be surprised if he knew more music law than a lot of music lawyers.
Yeah.
Because he's been through some stuff and he's just been around.
He's had some bad choices.
Yep.
Yeah. 50 Cent confirms that the Eminem 8 Mile TV series is in motion. This, of course, if you've never seen the movie, centers around a fictitious version of Eminem's upbringing with some elements of truth. Never watched the movie, but I know it did really well.
Oh, it was a great movie. Like, I'm not like rap is probably kind of pretty low on my list of music faves, but there are some artists out there that I can get behind and dig, styles of and whatnot. And I would say that movie probably got me into Eminem's actual music career, more than listening to it on the radio and whatnot. Just kind of like,
he's an absolute trailblazer, and I was definitely into him when his first 2 albums came out, back when I was young and angry.
Yeah. My wife and I watched 8 Mile again like a month ago, and totally dug it again.
Yeah, it's just a well done movie. Even if you don't like the music, just the movie itself and the story, it's well written.
Part of it is like it's well acted. Like
Marshall's
he was a good actor,
man. Give
a
it up to the
lot
dude.
of musicians get into acting and they don't really belong there.
That's true. That's
like
true.
50 Cent.
Is it?
Yeah.
His video game was terrible also.
Oh, he has a video
He
game
had
too?
he had a video game on the PlayStation 2 called 50 Cent Get Rich or Die Trying. Curtis.
We'll just leave that there.
We'll leave it there. Radiohead is planning a return in 2023.
Yeah.
Drummer Phil Selway said, "We're going to get together at the start of 2023, and I'm sure we're going to start looking at ideas of what comes next." I'm excited about this. I love Radiohead, and Radiohead is one of those bands that did not go out on a crappy note. They went out on a good note. Like, they were like at the height of their fame, and they're like, "Hey, we're just not feeling it. We're going to be done."
Did they? And they officially back then they had officially like called it quits.
I thought it was like an indefinite hiatus. I don't think
Okay.
they said they broke
Yeah,
up.
yeah. And Tom York was going. He had a band called The Smile. He's been touring with. I haven't. My brother-in-law went and saw them recently. He's a huge fan of just Radiohead and Tom York.
I mean, I respect them. It's like when you get to a point, you get so rigid on a path, and you're like you get almost trapped by what's expected of you. And by walking away from it, they took that power back, and they're well, when we come back, we can do whatever we want.
But dude, they seem like they've been doing whatever they want for a while now.
That's
like,
true.
Yeah.
And I think the last, I want to say it was the last two albums, maybe it was like Kid Amnesia and something else. I want to say those were technically like either like B-sides or stuff that they had just not released, and they threw it together to release it, which they were good.
Was that The King of Limbs? Was that?
I think it was the last two releases,
Okay,
I want to say.
okay.
Again, I'm not a huge Radiohead guy. I have a couple of their albums, love them, but I don't know their Radiohead lore, as it were.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them basically from radio and MTV and stuff, and I had a couple of friends that maybe had thrown some on comps and whatever. And yeah, I've always loved everything that they did, but just one of those bands that just kind of you just kind of sleep on, and they're like, oh yeah, they're just kind of always there, and you respect them
Until they're not there.
Till they're not there. Yeah.
Oh, they're
But
great.
yeah,
Have you seen them live at all?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be honest. When they were touring, I hated them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think I've talked about this previously, but like if someone comes to me and makes a big deal about how good someone is, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. So everyone was always like, "Oh my God, Radiohead," and I'm like, no, I don't even want to listen to them.
I backed off of them early on, partially because like my friend Travis, who was the lead singer of the band that I was in, he was so into them, and it kind of just felt like his thing. And it was when OK Computer came out, which now, I mean, I'm among like legions of people who think it's like one of the greatest albums of last century. It's
the closest thing to Pink Floyd since Pink Floyd.
Yeah, what a good album. But like you, I kind of was like, okay, it's his thing, and I didn't really get into him until later. But
So kids, don't come on too strong with your friends.
yeah. Although I've been guilty of that with bands I love.
Oh,
absolutely.
hardcore.
I was
I
the
know,
dude. Yeah, evangelizing Rush when I was in high school. People were like, shut up.
Evangelizing Butch Walker all day, every day.
Really?
Yeah. Stu and I were listening to some Butch Walker today.
Yeah, that's
She was
right.
like, "Oh, who's this?" I was like, "I've been trying to get you into this dude forever because you'll love him." And maybe I'm gonna make you a playlist, Stu, and I'm gonna send it to you, and you
Do
are
it,
gonna
man.
listen to it.
All right.
And if you hate it, I want you to shut your dirty mouth. And
Don't tell James.
All right, the Royal Mail. So this is the mail service in the UK. Announced
That's a hell of a segue, James. Next.
they are going to be releasing 12 new special stamps celebrating the band Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Up the irons.
Yep. So then now you know that you've made it as a metal band.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get stamps.
Once you get stamps. When I was a little kid, I collected stamps. It was great.
Yeah, I don't collect stamps, but I would collect these.
Steve only had the LSD stamps.
Yeah.
All right. We unfortunately had a few deaths. Modest Mouse founding member Jeremiah Green died on December 31st. He had recently been diagnosed with cancer. R.I.P., sir. Anita Pointer of the Pointer Sisters died the same day at the age of 74. She had been battling cancer for some time. Rest in peace to her as well. Earth, Wind, and Fire drummer Fred White is also drumming in heaven as of the first of the year. Fred was 67. And then we get to someone that I think is special. Mr. Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson passed away at the age of 83 on Christmas of all days. So The man was known for playing what is called Chicago West Side Blues. This is a more upbeat one that keeps people dancing by Mr. Johnson's own admission. He came up around the same time as Buddy Guy. Having grown up in Mississippi, he moved to Chicago as a teenager. At the time, he had a nickname of Coffee because he would say that he always grinds so fine and percolates on the regular.
Yes. I love it.
I was telling these guys, I got a sweet quote from this man, and I did not tell them ahead of time. I didn't want to lose that magic.
I'm so glad you didn't disappoint. Like, because he kind of put that up there on a little bit of a pedestal, and I was kind of like, how good is it going to
be that good?
Yeah,
it's
coming out a little too strong with it. And you were like, I am prepared not to like this quote.
All right. So he quickly made a name for himself playing in Chicago West Side blues bars in the 1960s. He traveled and recorded with the great Muddy Waters in 1973 to 1979. Funny note, there was a side story later that when he was playing on his own and near the end of Muddy's career, Muddy would give him crap because he's like, was playing so fast and energetic. He's like, an old man can't keep up.
That's great.
In the 1980s, he was on his own. In 1983, he won a Grammy for his work on the Atlantic Records compilation album Blues Explosion. To his credit, he was best known for the songs Hound Dog, later covered by Elvis, and Ball and Chain, which was covered by Janis Joplin. Should be said, he was touring right up until his death with a band called Magic Rockers.
This one's for you, Luther.
This one's for you, Luther, for sure. So, Steve, going to concerts lately?
Yeah, I was at just actually at a local social club around here, as they call it, Gibson's Music Social Club or Social Hall. So I had a buddy come up from Ripon with his new band called Federal Hippie. And,
that's a sweet name.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, and Sam Luna, lead singer and lead guitarist, is just
I
a sweet
met
guy.
Sam. Sam is a good dude.
Oh yeah, met Sam. Yeah, he's a
It's
a
for
great
my
dude.
birthday. Remember?
Oh,
I
that's
was
right. Yeah,
very
we went out and
drunk.
saw him out in weirdo Redneckville. It was great.
Yeah, I drove for hours and I couldn't tell you where we were.
And it was it's great to see Sam and his new band. Saw a couple other local artists perform with them. Just a great night, great turnout. The local music festival, Mile of Music, that we've probably mentioned a few times now. They do a lot of off-season stuff as well. And one of their summer series is Rhythm and Brews, and they're actually
Great name.
And they put on a free show every Wednesday. There's like a big courtyard in one of the local major hotel downtown.
Are you referring to the Hilton?
The Hilton, yeah. Well, every year it changes, so it's the Paper Valley, owned by some other big mega corporation.
Who's
every
got the
3
most
years.
money now?
Yep. But yeah, and they always put on a great event. It's free. There's sponsored events, no ticket price, and it just something for the community to come down and just kind of get together on a Wednesday night and have a couple of cold beers or whatnot. But they're doing it this year. They're doing a winter version of that at the Gibson Hall on College there.
Was that where I saw that one show with you? Like, the one where
That one show.
Dave House?
No, we saw him at 313.
Okay.
I believe it's the 313. That like kind of wedding venue downtown.
Yeah. Side note, check out Dave House.
Yeah, Haas.
Haas. I apologize
Haas.
if he's listening, which I know he's listening.
But yeah, I went down there. It was usually because they have 2 stages at Gibson's. There's a backstage that you can probably 400 or 500 person capacity, Stu, you'd say.
Sounds about right.
And then sometimes they'll do, if they know they're not going to have as big of a crowd, or I should say, tend to believe they're not going to have as big of a crowd, they'll do a little front stage thing just to kind of give a little bit more visual traffic, for people walking down the sidewalk, maybe draw a couple people in to see some of these artists. But man, there was probably 150 people there, 125, 150 people. It was packed. There was people pulling out tables that were like stacked up in the back in the shadows. They were pulling them out so they had a place to sit, and it was just a real good night. And it was kind of neat. when my Sam's band Federal Hippie was on, they brought up a bunch of like guests, artists, and stuff.
Those are some of the best things when we do that.
Yep, cruising through town, and this one guy, let me get his name here, Emmett James. He's out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Here, great guy. He came up, did some spoken word, like over some like kind of like jazz-ish kind of tunes, just like just kind of grooving in it, and any
bongos?
No bongos, no bongos, nope. But he did after the show. We were talking to him and went up. He had a fair amount of different merch. He had like a gold like sparkly thong, and he had some crazy story.
How many of those did you
buy? None.
Right. You can tell me the real number later.
And he had some CDs and some T-shirts and some stickers and whatnot. But one thing that popped out, I was like, "Is that a record? Is that a flexi disc?" And he's like, "Yeah. You know what these are?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you know." But I was like, "Man, I haven't seen anybody with a flexi disc and a merch table. I don't think actually ever. Like typically they were like for promos and magazine.
In a magazine, that was the most common
things like
place.
that.
I think McDonald's was giving them out at one point, if I remember correctly.
Sounds like a McDonald's.
I got a great one. That came with a Bloom County book. Do you remember Death Tongue? Bloom County?
I do not.
Oh, Opus, Bill the Cat. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
No really?
Clue.
Bloom County Comics was like in the Sunday in the
must
paper.
Must be a Florida thing.
It is surely not. It's nationwide.
Oh.
Is he from Jacksonville?
He's from Iowa, actually. But oh wow. Okay. Anyway, so the characters in this newspaper cartoon strip that they had a heavy metal band called Death Tongue, which later they had to rename to Billy and the Boingers, because Death Tongue was too satanic or something.
Death Tongue is very offensive.
Yeah. And anyway, when he released like a book, a compilation of the strips, it came with a flexi disc that just like some fans had recorded versions of the songs that like one of the strips had like a small set of lyrics, and like this band just like made like "You Stink But I Love You" was one of them, and I forget what the other one is, but
I think I remember like kids' stories and stuff.
Yeah, I think I have like I'm that might be the other one in my collection that I was thinking of, and I believe it's a Brothers Grimm story.
It could be. Yeah, and if you're a longtime fan of the show, I had talked about previously about these and how they were generally originally made from like recycled vinyl, and used vinyl is never as strong as what is referred to as virgin vinyl, so it was more prone to deterioration. So that, and given the fact that it used probably like the late 70s, early 80s, you probably didn't have a very good record player, whoever you are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
sure. They weren't making $80, $130 styluses
like we have.
Yeah.
So
I'm only running like a $38 special.
I'm
good enough for me.
I'm unfortunately running like a $200 one, and we're in the latter half of its life.
Oh.
So, all right. So I made it to a concert not on New Year's Eve, but the night before. So the penultimate night of the year. So,
excellent vocab word.
It was actually used a lot during the concert. So we saw 3 bands. My wife actually came with me. The first one was Megan Farrell. She was out of Nashville. Sounds like she had traveled all over the place. Normally, I guess she tours with a band. However, she was there by herself. My wife actually met her and took photos with her and talked to her a lot. Her music was awesome. It was acoustic. She was singing a lot about, positive things, being supportive of other people. She was talking about drunken late night hookups and stuff like that, but all in a positive, like I guess the term would be sex positive way and stuff. And she was just bubbly and happy, and she was talking about how happy she was to be there. Partway through the show, she was talking about how she was like, well, I'm going to make one more effort to move out to Nashville and try to make it. So she generally seemed like she was happy to make music for people, and that was refreshing these days.
Very refreshing, yep.
Second band we saw was the Astronomers. If you're a fan of, like, say, bands like AJR, these would be the guys. I would refer to it as light poppy white boy rap. Not my thing, but there were definitely some people in their 20s that were there, like early 20s, that were very happy to see these guys.
Yeah, oh yeah, they've been through Appleton a few times now in the last couple of years, and yeah, they usually draw a pretty good crowd. So
not throwing shade on them, just wasn't my deal. And then the last one, the last one, the
Oh,
closer
God.
of the show, one of my personal favorites, and who I met right before the show, Jossie.
Ah.
So my wife and I got there early, and we walked around the corner, and she's like, "There he is," and he was there doing an interview with someone, and then he had his luggage still, and he came through. I'm like, "Hey, I don't want to bother you, but can I take a picture with you?" And he was like, "Oh,
I don't want to bother you, but I'm gonna anyway.
pretty much." And
Fanboy.
I was, and he put his hands behind us. He was very making jokes. He's like, "I'm so tired, blah blah blah, sorry, blah blah blah," and he's like, "Oh, we like flew to, we gotta drive down to Chicago right after this, and then fly back to Nashville for a show tomorrow night." Took the photo. I said, "I'm so happy that you're back." And I saw you at Mile Music, and I loved it. And he goes, "Well, I'm back." And it was just super duper friendly.
So you've mentioned this guy a few times. Tell our listeners how to spell his name if you can, so they can find him.
The album is literally called Pronounced, and then it's Jah, I think like SE, but the name, his actual name, Jossie, is spelled Gyasi. So if you're a fan of like glam rock and like 70s rock, this is your guy. He comes out wearing stuff that would probably make David Bowie blush in his Ziggy Stardust days. I'm talking head to toe, chest open, like sequins, like all kinds of stuff. And he's, lightning bolt. These are custom outfits. Like,
Yeah.
he'll rub down and then like the picture will change on his outfit.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's playing a Les Paul. He's falling over. He's doing solos at different parts, making jokes with stuff. Stu, I really think that you would probably.
Dude, I'm actually. He was the one guy I didn't see at Mile that I wanted to, and I was going to see him on that last day, and everything got canceled due to rain. So, like, yeah,
Oh.
I'm looking forward to seeing him at Mile this year, hopefully.
Yeah, I think he's trying to come back.
Yeah.
But, if there's only one way that we could get Stu to be able to enjoy Jossie before that.
Yeah.
If there was only some way.
If there was only some way. So, how about while I was seeing Jossie, I happened to buy you a copy
Nuh-uh.
of his album.
Dude, you're joking.
Nope, this is for you. I already have
Oh,
this.
you sweetheart.
So, you will be able to learn how to spell his name properly. So, I just want to draw your attention. This is on Alive Records, and it is in the purple vinyl. So, it's kind of like purple, and it's like smoky kind of color to it.
Oh, man.
There's only, I want to say like 2,000 of these being made, something like that. And it said very clearly on the Alive Records page, there's not a black version of this coming.
Whoa.
So this is the first album he made on vinyl. It's technically considered to be a compilation because some of the songs were listed on CDs previously.
Oh, nice.
So
Wow.
I got this.
James, thank you so much.
Oh, no.
I'm looking
Thank
forward
you.
to
Thank
spinning this.
you for like doing this with us. And I wouldn't have bought this for you if I didn't think like you would genuinely absolutely love it.
Because James is a cheapskate.
Dude, I love glam rock, 70s glam rock.
You
Like,
will
that's-
love that. And then
yeah.
here's Steve. Here's your shirt.
Oh, perfect.
My wife did not have time to make yours yet, Stu, but you will
No.
get one.
Oh, these are nice, guy.
Yeah.
Yes. So Steve's getting one of our first official One More Record podcast T-shirts with our logo on the front. She makes these on her Cricut, so it involves melting like vinyl and stuff, which is ironic given the nature of our show.
Right.
So anyway,
Killer.
love you guys both. I wanted you to have one more Christmas
Oh,
present.
mwah.
Thanks, James. Now I feel like crap that I didn't bring you anything. Have another beer.
Beer is the gift that keeps on giving. All right, so we got our two individual stories that we made, huh?
Yeah, today I want to talk about Billy Idol. So Billy was the first star of 2023 to be added to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That was back on January 5th. His star will be located at 6201 Hollywood Boulevard, right in front of Amoeba Music.
Famous record store.
Yep.
Good spot.
So Billy Idol, born William Michael Albert Broad.
What a weird. It's
pretty punk.
Yeah, that's a lot of names.
Kind of ruins the magic a little bit. It's kind of like hearing or seeing Daft Punk with their helmets off.
Let's pick on Sting again a little bit because his real name is Gordon Sumner.
Yeah, that
is
sounds
also-
like he should be a lawyer or
pretty
something.
tough.
Yeah, maybe we won't tag him in this. No, I totally will. So Billy was also known as the lead man for a London-based band, Generation X, which formed in '76 in Chelsea, London. Briefly after a short, few-week stint playing guitar in another West London band, Chelsea. name of the band, as a guitarist in that band. It's reported that the lead singer of the band, Chelsea, was also the inspiration of Idol's signature look.
And my wife's name.
Oh, there you go. Suggesting that he bleach his hair, for that retro rock look that they were kind of, going for in their music
Which really
style.
was his iconic look.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it worked. He just looked good like that. Weeks later, Billy Idol and bassist Tony James formed the band Generation X, with Billy switching from guitar to lead vocals. Generation X would go on to record 3 studio albums before dissolving in 1981. Arguably, their biggest hit was "Dancing with Myself," which Billy also recorded, and that's probably a
great song,
a little more famous,
Terrific song. Yeah.
And they also had some other great hits such as "Ready Steady Go," which has always been a favorite song of mine, "Wild Youth," and "Your Generation." In 1981, Billy moved to New York City to launch his solo career. In 1982, he released his self-titled album, Billy Idol, redoing "Dancing with Myself." And that's probably where he hit MTV and the
Didn't they used to call him Mr. MTV? Wasn't that?
Ooh,
I believe that's what they called
that.
Billy Idol back
I
then, yeah.
can't confirm nor deny that.
Loose ends next week.
Stay
tuned.
tuned.
So he recorded that "Dancing with Myself" as well as his biggest solo hit, "White Wedding."
I love that song.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. It's one of those songs like within 2 notes, like I know it's coming. His second studio album, Rebel Yell, achieved double platinum status. He would go on to release 3 more studio albums through 1993 before taking a step back from the scene to enjoy his personal life. He then released 2 more full-length studio albums in 2005 and in 2006, and a third in 2014. He has since released an EP just back in September of 2022, 4-song EP. I listened to it once or twice, and for all accounts and purposes, it's Billy. Like it's maybe a little bit more polished than White Wedding era and that. I didn't really. I don't know if I've ever heard much of the 2005, 2006, or 14 releases.
I had a CD of his. I think it was called Cyberpunk.
Okay,
That's a great name.
That came out in the 90s sometime, and it was one of those when I was like on the BMI, the club.
The CD
club. The CD club, right?
Do you still owe them?
I totally. I mean, maybe. But yeah, that was one that came in the mail that I forgot to send back, and I was like, oh, I like Billy Idol, and it was a weird album. He did a cover of "Heroin" by the Velvet Underground on that.
Really?
Yeah.
How was it?
I mean, I remember it not being that great, the whole album, but
I think
really
a lot
wanted
of
to
covers
like it.
aren't great, but
yeah.
Some are epic. Like
Some
some
are
are better
better
than the originals,
Agreed.
even with
Sure.
the originals being
Yeah.
amazing songs.
I mean, that's a topic for another
that's
show.
a lengthy.
Yeah.
I think that's when I want to come in and I want to be prepared to have a fight with you guys about.
taking off the gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I absolutely I can't express this enough. I love Billy Idol. When I see him like that ceremony that you're talking about, he's just up there making poses, sticking his tongue out, just having a good time.
Just being
and
Billy.
there's just some sort of like innocence about it where like he just genuinely seems like he just wants to have fun, and I love him for that. He always seemed to me as kind of like the punk guy that made good, and he became a pop star, but
It's kind of that acceptable. I think I'm probably stealing this phrase from some articles that I've read recently. But he was like kind of likened to the acceptable face of punk rock.
I would agree with that.
Because he was clean, and he wasn't just that dirty Sex Pistols, gutter punk kind of look.
He just talked like it.
Yeah, he just talked
well,
like it.
I got the feeling because he came up with those guys that they all kind of wished him well, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had some quotes in John Lydon's autobiography. I don't know. I just got the feeling they were all like, "Yeah, he became a pop star, but we all like him. Like he's one of the guys.
Still one of the good guys."
Yeah. It's just kind of like, hey, we may not respect you musically, but we just like you so much. That's literally how I get by in life.
Yeah.
So I had meant to try out his Christmas album as well. He just released a Christmas album not
No
that
way.
long ago. I didn't listen to it, but just his smiling face on the cover, and I was just so tempted to buy that. But I'm like, no, I want to buy this. So anyway, on to my topic. Kind of goes well with the talk of glam rock. So the word androgyny comes from the Latin words literally meaning man and woman, which came to represent a person that characterizes both men and women. And then, so if I ask you guys, if I say an androgynous musician, who comes to mind?
David Bowie.
Oh, hands down. I thought for sure Stu was going to be like David Bowie.
I had to say it first.
Well, I
'cause
mean, he definitely. He played that up like the androgynous, but like most of his career, he did not seem terribly androgynous.
The latter
to me.
half, I would
True,
agree.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that
it's
was
funny
like,
you say it,
he
the-
kind of used it as to make his mark, kind of like, hey, look at me, kind of.
Yeah,
thing,
like
maybe.
the-
It was a popular gimmick in the 70s, though.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, Elton John.
yeah, I mean,
think
here,
so?
there's other people. Like,
But the
pretty
androgynous
flamboyant.
is like you can't tell if they're male or female. Like that's the right. Like
gender bending.
Like
I mean,
Pat.
it's meant to blur the lines between
Yeah.
the two where, you know, you see a woman that has more masculine characteristics, maybe wearing leather, short hair, like Joan Jett, for example.
Yeah.
Joan Jett technically is more of an androgynous musician. She's just not what people normally think of. Normally they think of like David Bowie, who's on the poster behind Stu over there. That's the common one. There's other people. Annie Lennox.
Yeah.
Annie Lennox wore like suits and stuff like that. Another a softball easy one, Prince.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Prince, super, absolutely. Boy George, somewhere in between. Robert Smith, Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop wore makeup and stuff, and I know you love Iggy.
I do. Iggy's another one though. Like that. Well, I think more so than Bowie. Like he was always shirtless and like flailing around.
And he had the long hair.
Yeah.
Mark Bolan, probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Alice Cooper technically was kind of androgynous too. Now, granted, he was more like almost like trying to freak people out than be like.
And it worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
More recently, Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harry
Yeah,
Styles
true.
is very gender bending, and then of course like Marilyn Manson and Adam Lambert, who's touring with Queen.
There's another dude, and I can't remember his name. A friend of mine had posted his video though, and he had a song called like "Flamboyant." I'm flamboyant. Did you see this?
No,
I don't think it's Harry Styles, but someone else doing like a super androgynous, like, yeah. All right. Well, someone out there probably
Hashtag
knows who
old
it
guy
is.
brain.
Yeah.
yeah. Here's
totally.
another loose end for me to dig for. So certainly there's a lot of significant historical moments related to androgyny prior to the 1970s. In one article I read, they were relating it back as far as like the dandies in the 1800s. So while we're talking about this, I'm not going to isolate us to a specific time frame. But by the 70s, glam rock had hit kind of hard. Numerous male performers, like we had talked about, took over the stage, and they had elaborate personas, wearing women's makeup, costumes, and then they had this glorious live shows that were just over the top, and they were this huge spectacle. The trend kind of continued into the 80s, which like a lot of people don't actually kind of realize. What do you guys think like discos were?
True. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a ton of gender bending going on there. Studio 54 example became like a safe haven for what would be now called the LGBTQIA, and I just got that off that site, so if I said that wrong, I hope I don't offend anyone. And others to express themselves in like a sex positive environment.
Yeah, disco definitely like had a big a queer element attached to, which I think was where a lot of like the anti-disco sentiment came
But
from.
there was
among
also
the
like
rock crowd.
if
Yeah.
you look at Travolta's character in Saturday Night Fever, he was almost hyper masculine when he was talking to women.
Yeah.
Like he
Oh,
was
he
a
was,
little over,
totally,
he was
totally.
a little over macho with that.
Well, I think it was more that discos were like a safe place. I think for a lot of like gay culture back then.
Right.
Yeah.
And
not that disco itself was exclusively,
No, they were talking about that in one of the articles I read. It was a huge place for gay and black people to express themselves as well in like a safe environment. You know, when us privileged white straight males were out roaming the streets, like
Yeah.
they could go be themselves in these places. They could wear the leather. They could wear the studs. They could wear the women's makeup, and nobody was going to care, And that was kind of an interesting thing. So why am I bringing this up?
Good question.
So there's a lot of things that I noticed, like going through this. There's always like generations of people who kind of circle back around to this, as do most, I don't want to call it a trend, but most styles. And a lot of these styles, like this one, for example, these generations think they created it. Like even like the guys in the 70s, like they think that they created this gender fluidness, and it really wasn't them. I mean, it was going on for a long time, before that. And one of the things that like we're seeing now is kind of like it's penetrating other styles of music that we hadn't seen, like modern rap music. So modern rap kind of rolled around in the 70s, and this was, what was like considered to be like a series of stories. And this was how people got their information. This is how we had societal conversations. And this was a lot of stuff that like mainstream media outlets were ignoring. Chuck D of Public Enemy even referred to rap as CNN for black culture.
Huh.
And I was like, that was such a cool quote.
Yeah.
So glossing over the large part of, history, we're going to focus on, like the 80s with rap. So it kind of came out of this place where young black men were a lot of times expressing their frustration with society and how society was failing them and how they were struggling with it. Now, the more detailed period, which we're going to call like gangster rap, which would be largely popular in the 90s. In a previous episode, I had provided Aaron with a copy of Criminal Minds, which is arguably one of the first like gangster rap albums to come out. When they're like doing the more like the harmonies, they're talking about guns, they're talking about drugs. And what kind of came out of this was this almost period of hyper masculinity, drugs, violence, objectification of women. And, full disclosure, I do own some Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg albums. So I own some albums like this.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Me too.
So interestingly, we're seeing this androgyny or gender fluidness penetrate rap music. And I, for one, am absolutely surprised by that.
Yeah, because rap has been it's a very guttural kind of energy and just primal in a sense. And that typically doesn't go with...
And it has been for a long time. Like, it's been aggressive. Like, it's been emotional. Mm-hmm. And it's not been a place.
But there were rap artists that like did not appreciate the dominance of gangster rap, right? There were other rappers who were like, "Hey, like there's some of us who are doing something else." Like, I actually don't know that I'm that surprised that it's happening because it's so much in the zeitgeist right now, right? Like,
but I mean, even if you don't count what's like modern, like let's take gangster rap out of the equation. Even like rapper, Eminem's very like aggressive and like masculine. Now, granted, he does objectify women, I guess technically at times. Talks about like murdering them and stuff like that. But like stuff like even more recently, like Nelly and some of the other ones, like they still, a lot of them, even though it's not like true gangster rap, they talk about guns, they talk about drugs, they talk about doing drive-bys.
Maybe a little more subtle about it.
Right, or they present it in a different fashion. So it's still very much a cultural thing, a part of like hip hop in general. So what we're seeing is, and like, here's a good example. Young Thug is the name of one of the musicians, and he had a cover of one of his albums where he's wearing a dress. And he went on to say, in my world, you could be a gangster with your address, or you can be a gangster with you can be a gangster in a dress, or you can be a gangster with baggy pants. Like, he even said, he's like, I don't believe in genders. And he's making rap music. Jaden Smith, Anderson .Paak, Kendrick Lamar, all of them have like at times kind of toted the line and kind of like bent it a little bit. And with that, and I guess where I'm going with all this is like, what do you guys think about it? Is this a good thing?
I just think it's a thing. Like, I don't know. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad? I think if they're being honest, like, yeah, sure, why not? There's an element though to some of all this, like it's showbiz too, right?
Oh,
So,
I'm sure to a point.
you know,
like, you
but-
know, like I think it was
But
like
even that, what do I care? It's show business.
Kanye
Like-
West was basically, you know, he's a good example. He's like, no attention's bad attention. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So me, in my mind, you know, you could go down the one angle where you're like, oh, it's great that they're introducing these more, you know, what would be considered traditionally feminine elements into rap music. And maybe it's going to become, you know, less offensive, you know, but here's what I'm kind of feeling about that is like, I don't think there's a world where it's going to completely shift one direction or the other. I think there's going to be these people that are making this more approachable, more modern rap music, but I think there's still going to be the guys that are going to come out and they're going to talk about guns, drugs, and drive-bys.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good to be able to express yourselves on both ends of that.
Sure.
Like, we don't
Yeah,
want...
I mean, I would rather have certain people get their frustrations out in their music rather than literally out in the streets. We got enough violence and shit going on in the streets. I'd rather have these guys just talk it out in the studio, like, and do that.
And a lot of these guys that talk about that stuff, they don't live that life. They're just doing it on the album because they know that other people are going through this as a form of expression.
Could be, yeah. It's just what they're seeing in their neighborhoods and you know, places that
Right.
they've grown up. And
But I think music's well-rounded, as it should be. So last question I wanted to ask you guys was, so if you're thinking about like the 70s, so you go back to like Bowie, Lou Reed, Mark Bolan, all those guys, do you think that they would have used different pronouns if they had the option or someone had thought of it?
interesting.
I think pretty definitely yes.
I can't say that I think all of them would have used it all the way during their careers, but I think hands down Bowie in the height of his androgyny would have became a they.
Yeah.
I think like Freddie Mercury would have probably become a they.
Yeah.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Joan Jett.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you on that one. I can definitely see Bowie. Just
I could see Bolan doing it too.
because I don't know enough about Bolan. You know, I haven't seen
Says he
enough
died
video
too
or,
soon.
or whatnot. But like Bowie, I've seen enough interviews and you know and read interviews and whatnot that I could totally see him adopting, you know, the they pronoun. Thank you. But and I don't like I'm a self-claimed like anti-Queen. Like I've never liked the band
He hates
Queen.
Queen.
I'm not
That's
ashamed
why
to admit that.
I'm not gonna lie.
And it's
That's
great.
why I use Queen as an example.
But I've still seen enough of Freddie Mercury's interviews and footage and whatnot that I think he's, even as a gay man, like he's still hyper sexual as a male. He just doesn't care if it's
I don't disagree
male with a male.
you. Yeah, he was.
But
he was
he's just with the leather, the chains, like that's just always typically a more masculine kind
he
of
did
a thing.
do that the solo video where he was like in a dress. I want to say like a vinyl dress. It was like he was vacuuming and stuff. I can't remember the name of that song.
Oh, I never. I
So
don't.
maybe
I've never seen
that's
that one.
possible.
Maybe
I mean,
towards
we're
the
never
end of
gonna
his career.
we're never gonna know because it's all. I mean, it's all opinion. I mean, I think like people like Joan Jett. I think Joan Jett would have stayed at her. You know,
Yeah.
Well, she still has the option. I mean, she
does.
Yeah.
She still does, and
Yeah,
she hasn't.
She hasn't.
You know, Annie Lennox questionable on that. You know, she's kind of an odd lady, but I mean, there's just a lot of that, and I do think that these musicians, a lot of them would have did it for sure.
Yeah.
Hands down.
And some of them maybe just for the shock value of it.
What in music?
What?
All right, well, that's all I got prepped, guys. You got anything else prepped?
No, I don't believe I'm supposed to come with anything prepped.
You
That's-
can anytime you want.
Oh, really?
You don't
Oh,
have to, though.
Okay, all right.
You know, you're already working. You're already on the clock.
Taken under advisement.
Fair enough. So, last couple things we want to say to you. So, just remember to check us out on our Facebook page. There's an email button right on the main One More Record podcast Facebook page. Steve recently started up an Instagram page for us, and it's blowing up.
Yeah. We got just looking here, just in like the last week and a half or so, we got 80 new followers from all over the globe. It's pretty neat. It's just really showing me like what kind of awesome vinyl collection community that there is globally. And so we appreciate all the follows. Check it out. I believe it is just One More Podcast, or excuse me, One More Record Podcast on the Instagram. I'm sure if you do a little search, it'll come up.
Where
You'll
can they
same
send
logo.
hate mail?
Steve Main's
Right
house.
to the DM on the Instagram. That's fine.
Okay.
But we really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us. Please tell your friends. Please share us if you like what we're doing. If you hate what we're doing, please don't tell anybody that you hate us. If you can, leave us reviews on your respective service, whatever you use, whether that be Spotify or Apple. We love doing this. We appreciate doing this. This is a privilege, and we want to continue to do this.
Most definitely.
So last but not least, just remember, there's always more vinyl.